This is what we're going to make for our project. It's just a little origami person. And I'm going to show you how to increase chains to make her, because she is a circle. I'm going to make Joseph to go with my Mary. And I've chosen black to do it, so I've got my 4.4mm crochet hook. I got the circle I did in the last video. So if you don't know how to do that, stop this video. Please go see the other one. And I'm going to continue to just chain through and show you how to increase on here. Sorry, I know I'm kind of all over the place. I'm trying to see where it's best to show you guys on the camera. So when you're going around, I try to pick one spot, and I try to stick with that spot to do 2 of my single crochets in. That way it gets bigger, but it evenly gets bigger. And that way I can also keep track of where my starting point is. Because that is something that I find very difficult with circles, is keeping track of your starting point. But when you do this, black may not have been the best choice colors. It's a little harder to see with the black than it is some colors. But you will see where it comes out as a nice circle by the time we are done. For anyone that has a better technique, I openly encourage everyone to find their own technique and what works best for them, because what works well for me may not work so well for you or somebody else. So I'm going to continue to go around here. And as I said, I'm trying to do 2 single crochets in the same round to show a smoother transition of my circle growing, and also to help me keep track of it a little better. You can of course use stitch markers or bread ties, whatever you would like to use, to keep track of where you want your starting point to be, or the first stitch that you do. I would highly recommend doing that just so you keep a fairly even circle. So this is my second time through, and I'm just going to compare it to the bottom of Mary, because I want them to be fairly close to the same size. I don't want it to look awkward with Mary towering over Joseph. So I'm going to, after I do this next stitch, stop and measure my bottoms to see if it's time for me to start going up the sides. It looks like I've got a little further to go, but I'm going to probably do about 2 more rounds here. So I am going to continue around here. As I said, the black's a little harder to see, but once you get the hang of it, it's a lot easier. Circles, for me, the way I do them, are fairly easy for me. If you have questions, feel free to ask. I am going to pause the video here. I'm going to work some more on Joseph, and at this point I'm getting ready to go upwards and start my circle around to start making the bottom of his body. So for that, I'm just going to keep my circle without adding the extra stitch, so it kind of goes up and curls for me, and then I will continue to go up until I am ready to shrink. But I'm going to pause here so I can work on getting it to turn up like I would like it to. Okay guys, so this is what it kind of looks like after you get it to turn up, which, like I said, I just keep doing the same amount. I stop adding stitches for this, just to get it to turn like I would like for it to. At this point, if you would like it to be a little wider, you can add another stitch in one of your circles. Again, try to keep the same circle or the same stitch that you're trying to grow, because it just makes it flow a little better if it's always on the same side, and then you can kind of hide your seam if it turns out a little awkward too. But this is what I will do until I get the height I want. Once I get to about the waist of the doll, then I will start decreasing, and I will show you how I do that. I recommend keeping a stitch marker in your stitches for your first stitch, so that way you can kind of keep track of where everything is at. I did in Mary do some double crochets in the center where I'm working now, as just kind of decorative to her dress or robes, whatever you want to call them, that she wears, just to kind of give it a little bit more for pretty looks. But I will go like this until I get the size I want, and like I said, I'm just doing the same number of rounds and the same number of stitches for each round, and mark your first one. Unlike me, don't be like me. Use a stitch marker, mark your first one. Makes life a lot easier. I should probably invest in stitch markers, thread tie something. But a lot of what I do, I kind of eyeball it, and that's not always even. So I would recommend keeping your stitch marker there so you can see where you begin and where the row ends. But I'm going to do a little bit more here, and I will count rows for you to let you know how many there are. On the bottom there is 4 rows. I do 4 to 5 rows in the round, so that way I have a decent sized base. And then after the 5th or 6th row, I keep the same number of stitches going around to curve it up. And once you curve up, it really just kind of depends on how big you want it. Because for mine, like I said, I did some double crochets in Mary prior to this, just to kind of give her dress some character. But Joseph here, I'm just doing the single crochet in for just all intensive easy purposes. You can do whatever stitch you would like. I recommend no more than a double crochet when starting your circle, doing it this way. If you actually can do the magic circle, then I'm sure your stitch doesn't matter so much, but a single crochet is easiest for just starting the circle. Okay, again, I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to stand my base next to Mary here and see if it's time to start decreasing. Alright, it is time for a decrease. So for this, what I do is I skip 1 stitch. I try to keep it at the same side, so I just skip the back stitch, especially with my little people here, so that way they have a back. I will, of course, have a little sash for Joseph to go around him. His will look a little different than Mary's. My hat fell off. Little Mary over here. But I just skip one. Depends on how quickly you want to decrease. You can skip more than one in a row. If you want a quick decrease, you can do every other. It shrinks very quickly. So please keep that in mind when you're shrinking it like that. For mine, I try to do, with my little people here, no more than three skip stitches because it shrinks it so quickly. And I want them to look normal here. Well, as normal as crochet people can look. So I try not to decrease too quickly. And you can do a row after you skip them where you just fill them all in and you go in every stitch, or you can continue to decrease by skipping a stitch. My recommendation, like I said, is skipping just one in the back and shrinking down slowly, but that again is my personal preference. So I'm going to continue to just skip one stitch in each row to shrink Joseph so he looks halfway normal and he doesn't look like he's got a chest on him. If you want him to look like you have a chest, then you would shrink in the center for the waistline, and then you would grow back out so they have boobs or a chest, and from there you would shrink up the top again for the neck where the head connects, and then what I do is I stuff my body and then I crochet on the head. So I'm going to finish Joseph's body here, and then I will be back to show you how I stuff and do the head. Okay, so on my Mary here, I have little arms, and all I did for those, if you want to do them, you can. I just crocheted a little extra down each side and went around the back, so the back is a little taller than the front, and crocheted around that side. And then I went into the top part, the brown, for my face. So I'm going to show you how to do the little arms. Since I did them on Mary, I need to do them on Joseph. So I just went in 3 stitches here and did my single crochet, and then I am going to continue my single crochet until I have the arm at the length that I would like it. It does not have to be super long. You don't have to have it at all. It is purely your preference as to if you want it or not. You can do it completely different than I am doing mine. There's several ways to do these. But I'm going to finish up this arm rather quickly here, as I don't want them overly long. Okay. So I've got the arm. It's going to sit about halfway down. Now I am going to fold it here to where I can go in and slip stitch. I'm going to go up one on this side here. I'm going to go up a second one. Then I'm going to go through to the other side so I get that little bend. Pull through there. And then I will continue up to the top of my doll here. And then I'm going to the neck. And I'm going to go around until I get to an even point where I can do the other arm, which won't take me but a minute here. Okay, so I'm over here for the other arm. So I'm going to do my 3 so it's even. Come up. So I'm going to do this arm over here the same way. I'm going to do my roughly 5 down with my 3 across. So that way I can create little arms that I will basically tack down with the crochet yarn. So that way they don't come flying up and look weird like they do right now. Well, I think they do right now. And then we can, which you can go all the way down and slip stitch them in. That is a possibility as well. You don't have to come back up the side. You could just slip stitch at the bottom. And then if you want, you can come back up the side and around the neck. You can slip stitch, cut your yarn, and go to the other side and make an arm. There's a lot of options of what you can do. Choice is completely yours. So, now that I've got one more left here, and then I will do the same thing to this arm where I crochet up the side. So that I ended wrong, so I've got to go back over to the other side. Well, actually, you know what, let me take that out, and you can go down. I'll show you how to slip stitch this one in. Okay, so you're in the last one. What I do is I get it in 1 stitch from the bottom, and then I put 1 stitch from the sleeve. I do 1 yarn over, and just like I would a single crochet, you can slip stitch them to where you're just simply going through. And that is fine. There is no set way that you have to do this. I just find it easier to have the extra yarn. And then I go up the side in my slip stitch. I try my best to get in the middle one and do a slip stitch there just for the look of the bend. What am I doing wrong here? The bend is another thing that is very much optional and up to you. You do not have to put that in. Okay, so now that that's done, I'm going to cut the yarn. I'm going to tie it. And then over on this side, I'm going to find my yarn wherever it went. I'm going to slip stitch my little arm down over on the other side. So I'm going to get down here in the bottom of it. I'm going to get in the very first stitch there. I'm going to get in my circle. Now I'm going to get into a stitch on the side of the body where I want it to lay. And I'm going to do the same thing for the second and third stitch. And then I will cut this side off and tie it. And now all you have to do is stuff it down in here. Okay, so I stuffed inside of Joseph here. I also tied on my brown so that way I can make his face. I'm not going to show you guys how to make eyes. That is completely up to you. The little sash on Mary, I just tied a string of yarn around her and kind of tied it a little tight to make it look like she's got boobs. And then the little hat for her, I just chained and did, this is actually a moss stitch in it, but I will show you guys how to do that at the end of this video. But for right now, we are going to continue circling and get Joseph's head made. So for this, when I get to the back side of him, I will do a double stitch in a stitch to make it a little bigger than the body when it first starts. And then from there I'll do that for about 2 rows, and then I'll keep it the same for about 2-3 rows, and then I'll start to shrink so that way I can create the top of my head, which I will stop and stuff in between to give you guys the idea of what in total this is going to look like. And of course, if you have questions, feel free to ask. I'm the easiest to reach on the Facebook page of Harmonious Hookers. If you try to reach me on here, I cannot guarantee I will see your comments in a timely manner. But as I said, if you comment on the Facebook page, I would be more than happy to help you with any questions you may have. Or if you have a way to do it better, I would love to hear it. Because I am all about trying new things and new ways to do things. So feel free to reach out. As I said, I'm going to go through this. I'm going to do my extra stitch. Back here I did my extra stitch, and that's going to make the head just a little bit bigger at the bottom, so that way when I go up it kind of stands out from the neck some. So I will do that for this next row as well. And then I'll do probably 3 rows of the same size after this. And then I will start decreasing again. So I'm going to pause so I can get my last row in here with the extra stitch. Then I'm going to do my 3 without the extra, that's just the same as that row. And I will be back to show you the decrease again. Alright guys, so I did about 4 rows and then I decreased the 5th row, and I'm actually on the 6th row. And I'm marking the decrease around it. And I will decrease around until I've got a very small opening in the head. By the time I'm done, it will just be the little hole like it was in the bottom that we started with. This is the quicker decrease that I told you guys about, where you do like every other one. I do 3 skip stitches in the first one. I do 4 skipped in the second. Third, I do about every 2 stitches I skip. And I keep going like that until, voila, it's in the top. I get down to skipping every other stitch. So at this point, I'm going to pull out my yarn. And it's going to look funny, but I'm going to stuff it because my head needs stuffing. So I've got my stuffing here, and I'm just going to take little pieces. This is why I suggest stuffing the body before the head, so that way you get the body looking nice and right. And then you can stuff the head to, you'll overstuff a little, so that way it goes all the way to the top. So for right now, my head's going to look a little odd. So I'm going to come back in here, and I'm going to go through my every other stitch until he is no more. So Joseph is now complete. So I will cut, tie off my top here. Okay, so you can see I don't got a hole anymore. This was my front side, so you can add the lies like I did with Mary here. And for Mary, what I did was I took the needle and I started in the back, so my knot was in the back and covered up by her little hat here. Oops. And you wouldn't be able to see it. And this little extra brown piece I kind of kept down for bangs for, if I can get it to lay right. No, so I got it going the wrong way. Okay. But that way I could hide my black and you would just see the eyes. So next what I will do is I'm going to pause this and I'm going to go find a color to do for my little sash around Joseph. Okay, so now we're going to work on that little hat here. Mary's was pink, but I've got green for Joseph, so he's going to be green and black. I'm going to do my little tie in here, and I'm going to do a simple chain stitch. And I am going to chain 2, 3, okay, so I chained 20. It's going to be about the same size as Mary's. So I've chained 20. Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to make a little rectangle. And that will be roughly 6 lines back. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do 1, 2, 3 up so I can do a double crochet for his hat. So if you have not seen the video for how to do the double crochet or DC, please go watch it, as it is a very well done tutorial. And that's what I'm going to do Joseph's hat in. And then I'm going to do 5 lines of that. So go ahead, do your chain, do your 5 rows of double crochet, pause the video if you need. I'm going to be pausing it and getting my 5 rows in, and then I will be back to show you how to decrease to make the back of the hat. Okay, so I'm only doing 4 rows here because it come out bigger than I expected it to. So 4 rows. I'm finishing up my 4th row, and then I will start decreasing here to give it the turn that I want. So I'll have my 4 straight rows, and then my 5th row I will continue to do the double crochet. It will just skip stitches to make it turn. So I will go into the first one, and what I like to do is I like to turn it on their head, kind of like this, so I can see what I'm doing. So I know you can't see real well when I do that, because I don't have a good way to hold it up. But what I will do is I will skip every other stitch. With the moss stitch, it came out very lovely, and you couldn't tell that I skipped the stitches. Moss stitch is something that we will be doing soon, actually, for our Facebook site, to show that stitch. It's a very easy, very pretty stitch. So up here in the middle, I'm going to go through every stitch for 3 stitches across. Oops, do my double crochet here. And then I will start my skip stitch again to shape it to the circle shape I would like it to be, or circular shape. This won't end in a circle, it will just